Welcome. This video is about Agile Risk Management. Here, we will discuss how to identify and mitigate risks in Agile projects. We'll cover the key aspects of risk management and how they apply to Agile methodologies. Let's begin by understanding what risk means in Agile projects. A risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, can have a positive or negative impact on project objectives. These objectives include scope, schedule, cost, or quality. To prioritize risks in Agile projects, we use the risk exposure formula. Risk equals probability times impact. There are several common types of risks in Agile projects. Technical risks refer to uncertainties related to technology, architecture, infrastructure, or technical implementation. Examples of technical risks include technical debt, integration issues, scalability problems, and security vulnerabilities. Team risks are challenges related to team composition, skills, availability, or collaboration. Examples of team risks include skill gaps, team member turnover, communication issues, and challenges with distributed teams. Process risks involve issues with Agile processes, ceremonies, or methodologies that may impact delivery. Examples include ineffective sprint planning, poor backlog management, and inadequate testing practices. Business risks are uncertainties related to business value, market conditions, or stakeholder expectations. Examples of business risks include changing requirements, shifting priorities, budget constraints, and market changes. Now let's explore some key techniques for risk identification. Brainstorming sessions involve collaborative team sessions to identify potential risks from different perspectives. Risk checklists are predefined lists of common project risks based on past experiences. SWOT analysis is used to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to the project. Here's an example of risk identification during sprint planning using a JavaScript function. The function identify sprint risks takes backlog items as input. It iterates through each backlog item. If an item's complexity is greater than 8, it pushes a new risk object to the sprint risks array, indicating a technical risk due to the high complexity item. Finally, it returns the sprint risks array. Next, we'll discuss the risk assessment process in Agile. First, evaluate the probability of each risk. Determine how likely the risk is to occur, rating it as low, medium, or high. Second, assess the impact of each risk. Evaluate the potential effect on project objectives, also rating it as low, medium, or high. Third, calculate risk exposure using the probability impact matrix to determine the overall risk level. Finally, prioritize the risks based on the exposure level to focus mitigation efforts effectively. This slide shows a probability impact matrix. It's a 4x4 matrix with high, medium, and low probabilities and impacts. The risks can be categorized as high, medium, and low. Let's examine some key risk mitigation strategies. Avoidance involves eliminating the risk by removing its cause or changing the approach. This often means altering requirements, specifications, or project scope. For example, removing a high-risk feature from the current sprint and postponing it until more research is done. Transfer involves shifting the impact of the risk to a third party, such as through insurance, warranties, contracts, or outsourcing risky components. For example, outsourcing a specialized component to a vendor with expertise in that technology. Mitigation means reducing the probability or impact of the risk to an acceptable level. This is the most common approach in Agile projects. An example of mitigation is adding spike stories to investigate technical uncertainties before committing to implementation. Acceptance involves acknowledging the risk but taking no proactive action. This is appropriate for low-priority risks or when mitigation costs exceed the potential impact. An example of acceptance is accepting minor user interface inconsistencies that don't affect core functionality until a later sprint. Here's how risk management is integrated into Scrum events. In sprint planning, you should identify risks associated with selected backlog items, and adjust the sprint scope accordingly. During the daily Scrum, you should surface emerging risks and impediments and adjust daily plans to address them. In the sprint review, you should gather feedback that might reveal new risks or validate risk mitigation strategies. Finally, during the sprint retrospective, you should analyze risk management effectiveness and improve the process for future sprints. The risk board has columns such as identified, in progress, and mitigated. Some of the risks are integration with legacy system, new team member onboarding, performance bottleneck, user interface inconsistency, application programming interface rate limiting, and data migration issues. Now let's look at the Risk Burndown Chart. A risk burndown chart is a visual tool that tracks the total risk exposure of a project over time, showing how risks are being identified and mitigated throughout the project lifecycle. The benefits of using a risk burndown chart are that it provides visibility into risk management effectiveness, helps teams focus on high-priority risks, shows trends in risk identification and mitigation, and serves as an early warning system for project health. On the right, you can see the sample risk burndown chart. The x-axis has Sprint 1 to Sprint 5 and the y-axis has high, medium, low, and none. The chart shows actual risk exposure and planned risk reduction. To wrap up, here are some best practices for Agile risk management. Implement continuous risk assessment by making risk identification and assessment a regular part of every sprint. Don't wait for issues to emerge before addressing them. Take a collaborative approach by involving the entire team in risk management. Different perspectives help identify risks that might otherwise be missed. Prioritize ruthlessly by focusing on high-impact, high-probability risks first. Don't waste resources on risks that won't significantly affect project outcomes. Document learnings by maintaining a risk register and document mitigation strategies that worked. Build an organizational knowledge base for future projects. Build risk buffers by including capacity for addressing risks in sprint planning. Don't fill sprints to 100% capacity, leaving no room for risk management. And finally, communicate risks openly with stakeholders. Transparency builds trust and often leads to additional support for risk mitigation. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please contact the Agile Center of Excellence. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit codelucky.com for more such useful content.